Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we're back with another episode of Way of the Underhive, and this series is dedicated to helping brand new players in Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on today's episode, we will be discussing the brand new gang that came out in Games Workshop's White Dwarf issue number 477, which is a brand new gang called the Badzone Enforcers. So this has actually been a really popular gang that's been popping up lately. I've had a lot of viewers message me on Facebook, also sending me comments on YouTube, asking me to actually do a review of these guys, talk about their strengths, weaknesses, and also do starting rosters about these guys. And at first I was kind of confused because I don't subscribe to White Dwarf, so I was kind of like, well, what's so different about these guys? So I actually went down to my local game shop and actually bought an issue of White Dwarf. So see, that's how much Commander Cheapskate loves you guys. He's actually willing to shell out cash to investigate stuff for you. So I went down to my game store, bought an issue of White Dwarf magazine to read about the Badzone Enforcers. It was kind of hard to find this issue because it had been a while since it came out, so not very many copies were left. So I was able to buy one real quick. I took a look at it, and it's an actually interesting gang. It's kind of like its own thing. Before I thought it was kind of like a knockoff of a Paladin Enforcer gang, and in some ways they're very similar to a Paladin Enforcer gang, but they actually have so many differences with this gang that they're actually could be considered its own gang, and it actually deserves its own video because of that, because there's a lot of cool things you can actually do with it. So in today's video, we'll be doing a couple of things, going over the Badzone Enforcers. We'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses of playing a Badzone Enforcer gang. We'll also talk about the individual fighters that you can recruit to make up your Badzone Enforcer gang, and as always, we'll also give you 3 different options for lists that you can use to build your first starting list of playing Badzone Enforcers. Now, I will include both one regular starting 1,000 credit lists for those of you who decide to play in the Underhive, and I also have 1,400 point lists for those who decide to take this gang out into the Ash Waste as well. And you can see those lists down in the description down below. So that being said, let's get this video on a roll. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the strengths of a Badzone Enforcer gang. Well, first of all, they're very similar to Paladin Enforcers, so they have excellent equipment choices for your captain and sergeants with Enforcer bolt guns, combat shotguns, as well as template and blast weapons. So you do have also excellent armor that you can purchase for these gang members as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the armor here in a little bit when we actually get to the weaknesses. So because you do have some really good access to equipment when you're using it for your gangs. At the same time, you also have excellent skill choices with having shooting, cunning, and Paladin drills being the primary skills for both your captains as well as your sergeants, which is really, really cool as well. The shooting skill tree, of course, is like one of the best skill trees there is right now in Necromunda. At the same time, cunning is also extremely powerful with the ability to both infiltrate or to interrupt an enemy's activation using Overwatch, which is probably, in my opinion, the best skill in the cunning tree. And then Paladin drills, of course, because you can use a lot of teamwork with your members of your gang as well, which is really important too. At the same time, you also have home turf advantage to the max. Just like a normal Paladin Enforcer gang, you do start off with a precinct house with a Badzone Enforcer gang. So if you do get attacked, they have to fight on home turf, on your home turf, where you get to set up your own little Zone Mortalis table the way you want to in order to defend yourself against your enemies. So you have home turf advantage when being challenged during the second half of a campaign to the maximum. And it could really help you out, especially if you're fighting against much more powerful opponents. Now, here's the reason why these guys are actually kind of cool and why they're different than normal Paladin Enforcer gangs, is because unlike before, Paladin Enforcer gangs, whenever they used to capture a piece of territory, they didn't receive any boons from it. All they could do, of course, is do a police action where they clear it out and they received additional reputation points. Now, with this gang, whenever you capture new territories, you get the boons from those territories as well. So you can now increase your credit rating credits very rapidly when you take over new territories, which is all kinds of awesome. One of the biggest problems of playing a Paladin Enforcer gang was the lack of funds that were available to you. You only received money basically from your precinct house, and that was it. Well, now this is no longer the case. You can now generate money just like any other gang. And at the same time, you can also recruit Hive Scum to your gang to increase your numbers. In a Badzone Enforcer gang, according to the narrative, the idea is supposed to be, since you're a police officer basically out in the middle of the wastelands of the bad zones, you don't have really many materials and recruits that you could usually do as a normal Paladin gang. So because of that, you can now hire Hive Scum to fill up your numbers, and you could use those guys in order to help out your gang as well, which is absolutely really cool as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we actually talk about the individual fighters that you can recruit in your gang. Now, with the strengths being discussed, let's talk about some of the weaknesses of playing a Badzone Enforcer Gang. So one of the major weaknesses of a Badzone Enforcer Gang is that you are not as elite as your Paladin counterparts. And let's go ahead and talk about that. Some of the things I'm mentioning here is that whenever you used to purchase Paladin Enforcers in the past, the cost of their armor, they used to automatically come with armor as well as a Stubgun right off the bat. So they were a little pricey, but you also got a lot of stuff that you got with them when you recruit them this way. In this situation, however, armor is not given. It's also, you have to purchase it now, just like any other gang now. So because of that, they will be spending quite a bit of money in order to purchase the better armor that they used to come up with. At the same time, they also get a reduction in the type of weapons that Patrolmen take as well. The reason why is because it's supposed to be the idea that supplies are very difficult to get to your gang, and that's the reason why they don't have a limited choice of weapons they can take now. At the same time, in a Paladin Enforcer gang, whenever you lost a member of your gang, you got a rookie Patrolman to take their place, and that was provided to you absolutely free without any costs. That doesn't happen now with a with a Badzone Enforcer Gang, and the reason why is because the fact, like again, they're supposed to be out in the boonies all by themselves. They don't really get much material to help them out. For example, as I was mentioning before, with the limited with the type of weapons you could take, there's a new special rule that's attached to your Patrolman called Broken Supply Lines, which means that they have a scarce trait now on Enforcer bolt guns, Enforcer combat shotguns, as well as Concussion carbines for your Patrolman, which means that the scarce trait now is added to your weapon. So if you roll that ammo roll on your weapon and you don't have an ammo cache of any sort, that's it, you're out. You don't have any more weapon, you don't have ammunition for that weapon for the rest of the scenario. So because of that, it can kind of limit the things that you can and can't do. At the same time, though, you also have another weakness called the expendable conscripts rule, and this is applying to your Hive Scum. Because your Hive Scum are expendable and they're just being forced to fight either by being paid or being threatened to, or the situation may be, you cannot use Hive Scum in group activations. So if you're running a really Hive Scum heavy gang as a Badzone Enforcer Gang, you won't be able to do any group activations with those guys whatsoever. So that could potentially be a weakness, especially if you're relying upon group activations. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to our gang list and how you can kind of circumvent that weakness as well. So now that we're done talking about the strengths and weaknesses of playing a Badzone Enforcer Gang, let's go and talk about the individual fighters that make it up. Alright, so up first we have our Badzone Enforcer Captains, and these guys are actually just pretty much like their counterparts from the Book of Judgment from the Paladin Enforcer rules. So let's go and talk about these guys real quick. So first of all, your Paladin, your Badzone Enforcer Captain, that guy's going to cost you 125 credits, so he's a little bit cheaper than the Paladin version, and the reason why is because he doesn't come with armor automatically. So let's talk about their stats real quick. So their stats are exactly the same with 5-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill, 4+ ballistic skill. They have 3 strength and 3 toughness, 2 wounds, 4 initiative, 2 attacks, 4+ for leadership, 6+ for cool, 5+ for willpower, as well as 6+ for intelligence. And of course, when it comes to their skills that they can use, their primary skills are brawn, as well as Paladin drill, as well as shooting. So those are their primary skills that you'll be able to use for these guys. Secondaries, which are not as important because it's kind of hard to get those, but still, we'll mention it. Those are ferocity as well as leadership for those skills. So let's go talk about this guy a little bit more in detail. So your Badzone Enforcer Captain has excellent stats, and they're really good generalists, and they can be used both effectively in close combat as well as shooting. So depending upon the playstyle that you prefer to play for your gang, you equip your captain accordingly. I know some guys, like for me, for example, I'm a little bit more careful with my leaders, so because I like to put them more like in a shooting support role, but at the same time, though, I've ever seen other players take their leaders and make them into full-blown close combat beasts. So it's just kind of up to you how you want to run it at the same time. So besides that, you also want to dedicate this fighter, in my opinion, with leadership support skills to the Paladin drills. The Paladin drills are really, really good. You could use teamwork in order to do group activations. Although for this gang, though, that might not be such a big point of concentration. And the reason why is because your Hive Scum cannot be group activated. So maybe you could try playing with the other ones. For example, like threat response is another excellent skill that I like, because that means you can do a lot of counter charges with that fighter, which is kind of cool. At the same time, you can also equip this guy with blast or template weapons, which works really, really well with this guy. Give him an Enforcer Shotgun, and he can open up with salvo rounds, shredder rounds in order to do template weapons for his. Or you can give him the Concussion Carbine, for example, or Grenade Launcher, give him blast templates. Either one is pretty good. However, when it comes to this fighter, I do recommend getting the more expensive armor in order to protect this fighter, because now armor is no longer free for your gang. You basically have multiple classes. For example, the Hardened Flak armor now costs 30 credits. The Hardened Layered Flak armor costs 50 credits. And Layered Flak armor costs 20 credits now for your gang. So you will have to think about that and figure out what you want to use for those guys as well in order to help out your individuals. At the same time, another cool thing about these guys is that they can now take hacked cyber mastiffs as well. Now those cost 100 points in order to purchase those guys, so they are kind of a steep investment, but they do offer some benefits to protecting your player. For example, they can be used as shields to protect your enforcer captain from being shot at. They can also help out your enforcer captain in close combat, so there are some definite benefits for actually having one of those for your gang as well, and you can actually now get those for your captains, which is actually kind of cool too. Alright, so up next you have your Badzone Enforcers Sergeants. They cost 85 credits apiece, and they pretty much have the same stats as their Paladin counterparts. So let's go talk about those stats real quick. So they do have a 5-inch movement. They have 4+ weapon skill and ballistic skill. They have 3 strength and toughness. They have 2 wounds. They have 4 initiative, 1 attack. They have 5+ for leadership, 6+ for cool, 6+ for willpower, as well as 7+ for intelligence. And when it comes to their skill choice in this one, for their primaries, they have cunning as well as paladin drill and shooting. And for their secondaries, they have brawn, ferocity, as well as leadership as well. So they're pretty much exactly like their counterparts from the Paladin Enforcers, so that part is really, really cool as well. And just like their Paladin counterparts, they actually are very versatile and excellent for carrying out numerous roles. You can make them for close combat fighters. You can make them carry special or heavy weapons. It just kind of depends on how you want to outfit these guys as well. And yes, I did say heavy weapons on this one. Originally, they used to carry like the little sledgehammers that they have, those sledge rams that they can usually carry. But you can also carry heavy stubbers now for these guys if you want to as well. Same thing with flamers. So they're kind of similar to the Adeptus Abadis gangs that you used to be able to play back in the day in the golden age of Necromunda as well. Another cool thing about these things as well is that they don't have any limits to the number of sergeants you can get. Originally, for the Paladin Enforcers, you can only start off with 2 sergeants. In this system, you can get as many as you want to, which is kind of cool. These guys, however, though, you do have to balance them out with a Gang Fighter X rule, so because that for every sergeant you want, you're going to have to balance them out with a patrolman of some sort, so you do have to keep that in mind as well. So like I said before, the sergeants are excellent support characters. They're there to give you extra firepower, extra leadership, or extra fighting ability in close combat, so do not be afraid to put these guys in harm's way, and actually pairing them up with patrolmen would be really cool, or even better yet, with your Hive Scum, because your Hive Scum can actually now protect them, kind of like juvie level fighters. And so that's my take on the Badzone Enforcer Sergeant. Alright, up next you have your Badzone Enforcer Patrolman. These will be the ganger level fighters in your gang, and these guys will be costing you 55 credits apiece, and just like their Paladin Enforcer counterparts, they're just extremely similar to those guys as well. So let's go and talk about their stats real quick. So once again, they have a 5-inch movement, 4+ for ballistic skill, as well as weapon skill. They have 3 up for strength and toughness, 1 wound. They also have 4 initiative, 1 attack. They have 7 leadership, 7 cool, 7 willpower, and 7 intelligent. And also when it comes to their skills, their primary skill is paladin drills, as well as shooting, while their secondary skills are brawn, as well as ferocity. So let's go and talk about these guys as well. So when it comes to these fighters, they make excellent shooters traditionally, just like their counterparts for the Paladin Enforcers. However, when it comes to close combat, they're not as good as their Paladin counterparts, and the reason why is because you can't make subjugators out of them. In the Paladin Enforcers, it's basically you paid a little bit of additional credit cost to make them into subjugators, so that way they can get access to the Vigilance pattern assault shields, as well as grenade launchers and things of that nature. But you can't do that with these guys anymore as well, so that part is kind of sad. Same thing with the upgraded armor. You can't get the same upgraded armor that you could from Paladin Enforcers. These guys only can purchase flak or mesh armor for them. So because that, they are a little bit weaker than their Paladin Enforcer counterparts, which kind of makes sense because according to the narrative and the lore of these guys, they're supposed to be operating out in the fringes and the frontiers of Hive Primus. They're not going to get access to materials like they usually can, so because of that, they do have to kind of rely on themselves and make do with what they can get. So that's where the trade-off comes in. And a nice thing about that is because even though they might not be as elite as a Paladin Enforcer counterparts, they're cheaper in terms of credits, so you can get a lot more of these guys, which is actually kind of nice too. So that way you can get more sergeants, you can use your patrolmen to balance them out, and that's the way these guys are pretty much designed to be. Now there is something cool about these guys, however. Your Badzone Enforcer Patrolman can be upgraded to specialists, and your specialists have access to concussion carbines, and they also have access to flamers, so that part is cool. Same thing with sniper rifles. The flamer part is kind of cool because it kind of harkens back to the days where you could play Adeptus Astartes, not Adeptus Astartes, I'm sorry, Adeptus Arbites back in the golden age of Necromunda, which is kind of cool. but they could also now take heavy stubbers, so that is also cool as well. So if you're looking for some additional firepower, you could actually definitely do that with your patrolman by making them into a specialist, so that part is really cool too. So like I said before, not as elite as their counterparts because of that broken supply line rule and the fact they can't become subjugators, but they're a lot cheaper, so you can get a lot more of them in your gang. So that's the trade-off for these guys. Alright, last but not least, we're talking about our Badzone Hive Scum. So these are the new fighters that you can actually recruit to your gang, and you can actually bring these guys into a Badzone Enforcer gang, which is really cool. And they're just like their counterparts from the Book of the Outcast. So let's go and talk about these guys real quick. So your Badzone Hive Scum costs 30 credits apiece. They have 5 movement, 4+ weapon skill, ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 1 wound, 4+ initiative, 1 attack. They have 8 leadership, 8 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 8 intelligence. And their primary skills are cunning, and their secondary skills are ferocity. So let's talk about these guys real quick. So your Hive Scum. Think of your Hive Scum in a Badzone gang as your juvie level fighters for everybody else. So everybody else has juvie level fighters that they can use for their gang, using them as disposable chaff, disposable human shields, that sort of thing. Well, treat them exactly the same way in your gang as well. They're like the juvie level fighters for your guys, but unlike other juvie level fighters, they're actually better. And the reason why is because they got mediocre stats. Most juvie level fighters have 5+ for weapon skill and ballistic skill. These guys have 4 up, so they're right in the middle when it comes to that. Plus, they're disposable chaff, but they also have better access to equipment than most juvie gang members do. And the reason why is because they still have the full access to the same equipment and weapons tables that were on the Book of the Outcast. So because of that, that part is absolutely fantastic. So you can equip these guys with las guns, chain swords, grenades of any sort. So they have really good equipment that you can use. They also have actually pretty good access to armor as well. So that part is another really cool part about having one of these guys too. So I mean, they can get armored undersuits if you want to, giving you that +1 armor save. So that part cannot be overlooked. I mean, that's kind of nice. Now, there are some negatives about these guys. One of the big ones is they can't do group activations, so remember that. And the reason why is because these guys are hired scum, so that's one of the reasons why that's the case. My suggestion to you when you use a Badzone Hive Scum in your gang is to use them like juvies that you would for any other gang. Keep them cheap, keep them dispendable, because, you know, have them do the daters missions, have them do the bodyguard work. If they happen to survive and they manage to level up, that part is really great. According to the rules for the Badzone Hive Scum, if they level up to 5 different advancements, they become patrolmen and they become members of your gang, so that's also kind of cool. Or if they die, it's okay, because you can always get another one because they're easy to replace. So that's the nice thing about having Hive Scum in your gang, and that's the way I would use them in my Badzone gang. So now that we're done talking about each of the different fighter types that you have in your gang rosters, let's go ahead and talk about the 3 different lists that you can use to create for your very first campaign using Badzone Enforcers. So this first list, I call it the Underhive list, and the reason why is because this list is kitted out for players who want to use a Badzone Enforcer gang in the Underhive of Hive Primus. So for your first leader, you have your Badzone Enforcer captain. This individual is going to cost you 285 credits. They will be equipped with Hardened layered Flak armor, a Vigilance patterned assault shield, Subjugation grenade launcher, an Autopistol with Manstopper rounds as well as threat response. So this person's more like a close combat beast. They can do some pretty good long range shooting with their grenade launcher, but if they get up close and personal close combat, they can do a lot of counter charges and bring the pain. After that, you have 2 Badzone Enforcer sergeants. Both of them will cost you 140 credits apiece. Both are equipped exactly the same with mesh armor, concussion carbines, Stubguns with Dumdum rounds, as well as a fast shot ability, so that way they can open fire twice with those concussion carbines, throwing around those 3-inch blast templates all over the battlefield, causing all kinds of chaos. Once you're done with that, you're going to have 3 Badzone Enforcer Patrolmen. All 3 will be equipped exactly the same. They're each going to cost you 85 credits apiece. They will have Flak armor, auto guns, as well as stub guns. Now, the reason why I'm giving them auto guns is because Enforcer bolt guns and combat shotguns are great. However, though, with that scarce trait, it's going to be a little hard to come by with getting ammo. So starting these guys off with auto guns is perfectly fine. As you develop in the campaign, you can buy them better weapons as well as better ammo caches and such. So that way you can take advantage of that and not worry about those rules too much. At the same time, you're also going to have 3 Hive Scum as well. They're going to cost you 60 credits apiece. Hive Scum 1, 2, and 3 are equipped with stub gun, axes, as well as smoke grenades. These guys' job is to basically be the point man for your fire teams. They go out there, they throw smoke in order to screen your advance forward. They can do some fighting if they have to, but they're mainly being used as bullet magnets for the most part to protect your better fighters. Now, this is a good starting list. I know that it seems like it's a bit redundant because there's a lot of repeats in this list, but that's done on purpose. And that's the point point of this as well. And the reason why is because this gang operates in small units, firing and maneuvering across the battlefield to destroy your opponent's gang. And like I said before, this list is designed to be used in the Underhive, and it'll cost you 1,000 credits entirety, and you have 3 fire teams. All 3 fire teams can be used as an assault or support element depending on how you use them, and here's how they break down. Fire team number 1 will consist of your captain, patrolman number 1, and Hive Scum number 1. Fire team number 2 will consist of your sergeant number 1, patrolman number 2, and scum number 2. And fire team number 3 will consist of your sergeant number 2, patrolman number 3, and scum number 3. So because of that, these guys are all pretty much equipped the same in both the patrolman as well as the Hive Scum that are in there. The captains and the sergeants are the only guys who are a little bit different. This is pretty much how it works. This Hive Scum takes point moving forward and throwing smoke grenades to create cover. At the same time, the Scummer also acts as a shield to protect your fire team's leader. Now, the Patrolman provides overwatching fire with their autoguns, so they can make some mid to long range shooting in order to provide some overwatching fire, but they can also be used in close quarters combat because they do have rapid fire in their weapons. Now, the real killer is your fire team's leaders, who uses their blast template weapons to inflict maximum casualties. So the Concussion Carbines are going off, killing more people than your patrolman or your scum. Same thing with the captain with their Subjugator pattern grenade launcher, and that's pretty much how it's designed to be used. So it's kind of like mimics like real life cops because they operate in smaller units and they kind of support each other, and that's the reason why there's so many redundancies in this list. And this is what I like to call the 1,000 point Underhive list. Alright, so list number 2 is what I like to call the general purpose Ash Waste list. So this list is designed for maybe people who want to play in a Badzone Enforcer gang out in the Ash Wastes. So first of all, you need your Badzone Enforcer captain. This person is going to cost you 225 credits. They are armed with mesh armor, a vigilance pattern, assault shield, a shock stave, Autopistol with Manstopper rounds, as well as threat response. So once again, this guy is kitted out a little bit more for close combat, is what they're pretty much oriented for. The Manstopper rounds gives a strength 4 for the Autopistol. The shock stave and assault pattern shield for close combat kind of speaks for itself. After that, you'll have 2 Badzone Enforcers sergeants. Sergeant number 1 is going to cost you 110 credits. This person's got mesh armor, Stubgun and Dumdum rounds, as well as the Overwatch ability, while Badzone Enforcer Sergeant number 2 has 185 credits. They're armed with mesh armor, vigilance pattern assault shields, shock stave, Autopistol, and Manstopper rounds, as well as threat response. That guy is more of like a close combat guy as well. After that, you'll have 2 patrolmen. Patrolman number 1 and 2 cost exactly the same, and the crit exactly the same as well. Both will cost you 130 credits. Both have flak armor, enforcer shotguns, as well as stubguns. While Badzone Enforcer number 3, Patrolman number 3, will cost you 180 credits. This person will have flak armor, autogun, and will also be a specialist. So keep that in mind because you're going to upgrade this guy's weapons later on. After that, you have 2 Hive Scum. Badzone Scum number 1 and 2 are equipped exactly the same. They both cost 70 credits. Both are armed with las guns with telescopic sights. And at the same time, you also have a Scum Racer who's going to cost you 400 credits. And the reason why is because that guy is driving a Goliath rock grinder truck with a weapon stash on board, so that way you can supply with additional ammo rolls for your weapons, twin-linked auto cannon, as well as a boarding ramp and redundant drive system. So this is a good starter list to take out to the merciless Ash Waste. It's going to cost you 1,400 credits to build this list, and it's a good combination of close combat with assaulting parties and good fire support as well. So your assault fire team will consist of your captain, sergeant number 2, patrol number 1, and patrolman number 2. This team is made for boarding enemy vehicles. The boarding plank on the rock grinder will give you a +1 initiative to board. And at the same time, the captain and sergeant are the main close combatant killers with their shields and their close combat weapons, while patrolman number 1 and 2 use their enforcer shotguns to clear the way. The rock grinder's weapon cache will help the scarcity trait on these weapons due to the gang's broken supply line special rules. So that's going to help you out there. You also have 2 support teams. Fire support team number 1 consists of Sergeant number 1, as well as your Scum Racer with the Goliath Rock Grinder. Sergeant 1 fires the vehicle's twin-linked autocannons to lay suppressive fire for the gang and engage enemy vehicles, and the autocannons are beast. I'm just going to tell you that right now, and they will absolutely destroy everything in your path. You can also use the Sergeant's Overwatch ability to interrupt enemy activations, which is really help as well. So imagine that. Your enemy's going to try to do something, you can interrupt that activation with your Sergeant, and he's sending autocannon fire down their way, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, your second support fire team will consist of Patrolman number 3, Scum number 1, and Scum number 2. Now, this team can fight mounted on the Goliath rock truck, or they can fight dismounted, depending how you want to do it. Either way, their role is exactly the same, and that's to provide a longer range fire support to cover your gang on the battlefield. The las gun's telescopic sights will help you boost accuracy for long range shots by taking the short range bonus modifier and adding it to long range shots for your Hive Scum every single time they take a basic action aim. And Patrolman number 3, while they may have an auto gun for right now, which may not be all that exciting, since they're a specialist, you can upgrade them to better weapons later on in the campaign. You can get them Heavy Stubber if you want to, or you can get them plasma weapons, or whatever the situation is as the campaign develops, you can get that guy better weapons to help out your gang as well. And so this gang is kind of designed to grow over time, and this is actually a really good start to do so if you're looking for a pretty reliable base to build a list off of for your campaigns at the Ash Wastes. Now, list number 3 is what I like to call the Kama Crazy list for the Ash Waste. Kama Crazy being a play on the word kamikaze from the movie Mad Max Fury Road. So this is what's going to happen. First of all, you have a Badzone Enforcer captain who's going to cost you 270 credits. This character is going to have layered, hardened layered flak armor, a Vigilance patterned assault shield, a sniper rifle, as well as an Autopistol, Manstopper rounds, and the fast shot ability. After that, you have 2 Badzone Patrolman. Patrolman number 1 is going to cost 210 credits. This person's going to have carrying mesh armor, a heavy stubber, as well as a Stubgun, and will be a specialist. And the other one will be a Badzone Patrolman number 2 is going to cost you 70 credits. That guy is only equipped with mesh armor. I did run out of money for this list, so because of this guy will be unarmed for now, but he's operating autocannons anyway, so it doesn't really matter. After that, you have 4 Badzone Scum. Each of them will cost you 140 credits apiece. They're equipped with Wasteland dirt bikes, so that way they can run around on the battlefield. They have sawn-off shotguns for shooting at close range, as well as crack grenades. And let's go and talk about those guys we're doing here in a second. And then you have a Scum Racer. It's going to cost you 430 credits. This guy's got a Goliath, a rock grinder truck. He's got a rock grinder ram, so that way you can ram via enemy vehicles, a weapon stash, twin-linked auto cannons, boarding ramp, as well as redundant drive system. Now, this is a vehicle-heavy list for high risk, yet highly rewarding gameplay. That's what these guys are designed to do. So it's designed to be the most offensive list that you can take, requiring you to close with the enemy to cause massive damage to your enemy. Your Hive Scum are the main damage producers in this list, and they're mounted on nothing but dirt bikes, and their jobs to act like the kamikaze pilots are named after from World War II. They're designed to get up as close as possible to enemy vehicles or enemy combatants, throw crack grenades at them to blow up their vehicles, to blow up the enemy fighters as well, blast them with a shotgun if they need to, and then peel off as well. And because these guys are so aggressive that way, feel free to shout out all the Mad Max Fury Road lines that you want to. Yell witness me as you do it, and this kind of adds a little additional power to your dice rolls. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So your fire support team. So you have your fire support team consists of your captain, your patrolman number 1, patrolman number 2, as well as your Scum Racer with the Goliath truck. This team uses heavy firepower to fight. The captain spams their fast shot skill with their sniper rifle, while patrolman number 1 uses their heavy stubber. Patrolman 2 uses the Goliath rock truck's twin-linked autocannons to engage enemy vehicles, and the rock truck can also do ramming actions for more offensive capabilities. And at the same time, if you need to, the captain can also board enemy vehicles because he's also cleared out for close combat as well. Now your assault fire team for Badzone Scum number 1, 2, and 3, their job is to charge forward on their dirt bikes as quickly as possible, throwing within throwing range of their enemy vehicles. They throw crack grenades, create all kinds of damage, as well as havoc, and use their sawn-off shotguns to protect themselves as well, since they have to engage it close in order to cause damage for their opponents. And this is what I like to call the Kama Crazy Ash Waste list. It's kind of like a neat little list I thought would be kind of fun to put together. I had no idea if this actually would work out or not. On paper it sounds cool, but I'm sure on the tabletop it's even more fun watching the chaos explode. And that is my third list for this one. So in conclusion, this looks like a pretty cool gang to play actually. For either the Underhive or out in the Ash Waste, they look really, really neat. It's like you get the benefits of both worlds. You get some really cool stuff from being a Paladin Enforcer, and you get some cool stuff by not being a complete Paladin Enforcer as well. So it's kind of neat to see exactly how this gang will play out in future campaigns. I can see a lot of narratively cool things happening with this gang, because like I said, it's kind of like a combination of a Paladin Enforcer gang and an Outcast gang. You got kind of the best of both worlds, helping each other out, making this gang. You could do some pretty cool narrative stuff. You can make it to where it's like, like Fort Apache, the lone marshal trying to hold law and order and the worst places of Necromunda. Or you could play it as a really corrupt enforcer gang that are more criminals than cops, kind of like a Alfonso Harris from Training Day type situation, which would be kind of cool as well. Either way, I can't wait to see exactly what people come up with, and I can't really wait to see exactly what people do with this gang when it finally takes root within the campaign systems of Necromunda. Necromunda. So there you guys have it. That is my overall review of the Badzone Enforcer Gang, as well as 3 lists that you can use to create your first gang to play in your first campaign of Necromunda. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.